I think all sensible and right-thinking people will be concerned at the contents of the independent bonfire report, which has been revealed this morning in the Irish News. This report makes very clear, as East Belfast Community Initiative and Loyalists said all along, that those behind the aggressive action, the invasion of East Belfast, was actually specific Belfast City Council officers and the PSNI. And you know, whilst we made this argument the whole time and shouted this as loud as we could, I get the impression that quite often people weren't interested in, and they were taking the public narrative put forward by Belfast City Council and the PSNI as genuine. Well, I think today it's been shown that it was actually the Loyalist community that were genuine, and it was the PSNI and Belfast City Council that were telling lies. For example, within this report, it reveals that when a most senior police officer in Belfast telephoned an elected representative in the days leading up to the invasion of East Belfast, and this conversation was placed on speakerphone with the officer's knowledge and with a number of loyalists listening, and in the course of this conversation he gave his word that the police would not be and were not moving into any bonfire sites. He had no knowledge of this happening, there had no discussions in relation to this. That was a blatant lie, an attempt to deceive the community, to deceive an elected representative. And if that is where the PSNI are at, if that is so-called working with the community and community policing, when you actually undermine the people trying to positively work for workable solutions, well, I think that tells everybody all we need to know about you know, how constructive engagement with the PSNI actually is. It isn't. And I think the report is also clear that the driving force behind this was a particular Belfast City Council officer. That officer is Nigel Grimshaw. He is a former senior member of the PSNI, and I think it's entirely legitimate that many people will be deeply concerned that Mr Grimshaw is now using his new job in Belfast City Council to implement a policing agenda, and that is what has happened here. Mr Grimshaw and the PSNI have worked together in relation to this to force this issue. You can even see within the report in relation to Clue Place on the next day that the Department of Infrastructure were working with the community along with independent mediators. We're making progress to try and find a positive and working solution, and it's very clear the PSNI and Belfast City Council wanted to move in immediately. Well, this is entirely at variance with what the PSNI were saying publicly, that they were only asked to assist. As a matter of fact, they were not some innocent bystander being merely asked to assist. They were the player in this. The PSNI was driving this, and that is exposed within this document. And I think in that regard, Belfast City Council need to explain their actions, the PSNI need to explain their actions, and also I think the Alliance Party need to explain their actions, because they were working hand in glove with Mr Grimshaw. They were leaking selective details about that process in order to try and manipulate things and move things in a certain direction towards this aggressive enforcement action. And just on a final point, I would say that Loyalists came forward after the 11th and 12th of July and took criticism and engaged and explained and at times even threw the hands up to some mistakes that were made by the Loyalist community and faced extreme scrutiny for the actions of Loyalists over the July period. I think what has now transpired is what Loyalist spokespersons were putting forward at that time was true, was genuine and was accurate. I think the stories and the narratives being put forward by the PSNI, by Belfast City Council and by some elected representatives were lies. So therefore I think that now is time for the mainstream media to place as much scrutiny on the police and on Belfast City Council as was placed on the Loyalist community. They cannot simply be allowed to get away with their malicious actions over the 11th and 12th of July. And I think there's a big challenge for the Chief Constable, who continually talks about wanting to police with the community and work with the community. His most senior officer in Belfast lied to community representatives and lied to an elected representative and lied to independent mediators as part of a devious scheme that he had concocted along with former PSNI officer Nigel Grimshaw to invade East Belfast, to tear down these unionist bonfires and undermine all the positive work. And I think that there needs to be a little bit of scrutiny placed on that.